Good morning. It is Monday, March 2nd, 2020, and we are at the City Council work session. And we're going to start this off with the Historical Colorado State Fund grant application for Potato Growers Association building. Kendall and David, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. Before you today, requesting your consideration of a resolution to file a grant application on behalf of High Oasis LLC with History Colorado State Historical Fund for an amount of $200,000 or up to $200,000. Grant funds will be used for stabilization, updating, addition, and replication of historic decks around the historic Montrose Potato Growers building, as well as potential demolition of a metal-clad addition on the north side of the building to expose the building's original form, main entry door replication, steel H-frame reinforcement at door openings, barn door storefront replacement, window replication, and exterior masonry repointing. So a lot of historic preservation work. As a private entity, High Oasis LLC must provide at least a 1-to-1 match, 50% of the total project cost. Their match is likely to exceed that. The building has played a vital role in our community since being built in 1908. However, since the 1960s, it has remained somewhat underutilized and fell into disrepair. The building is one of the most historic structures in Montrose. High Oasis LLC is represented by David and Greg Fishering. They have invested to date $435,000 into the building to stabilize it and to protect it. They've replaced the roof, the floor, and associated support system for that stabilization. The design documents for this building are nearing completion. If awarded, the City of Montrose will have enter into a memorandum of understanding or a contract with High Oasis for the completion of this project. High Oasis will be required to provide invoices and copies of paid receipts in order to be reimbursed by the State Historical Fund. And I want to make this clear, the city will not be providing direct cash for this project, but will provide grant administration for it if we move forward. High Oasis LLC will be required to hire a project manager. The city will review all work with the project manager to make sure that it is complete per grant specifications and process payments to the project manager for the grant-funded work. So again, they'll have to make sure that they're meeting those requirements of the State Historical Fund, the Secretary of the Interior standards. They'll have to show that they've paid those receipts in order for the funds to pass through the city and be reimbursed to them. Again, High Oasis, they'll be required to hire a project manager, which we will work with, myself as well as Ann, to make sure that they are meeting those specifications. The resolution allows for the filing of the grant application and directs the city manager and staff to perform all necessary actions on behalf of a successful grant award and to enter into a contract with the State Historical Fund, History Colorado. With that being said, I can take questions. David Fishering is also here, the owner of the building, representative of High Oasis LLC, and so we can take questions about the project now.
Do you want to present anything, David, before we ask questions, or just take questions?
Yeah, just go ahead. Yeah, ask questions. Ask away.
Does anybody have any questions?
So I'm just curious, like what's the schedule sort of time frame? Like when does the application have to be in? When will you know if we got it? That kind of
So
question.
the application is due in April. It's my understanding we should know in August, I think.
I think it's August and then money available by October-ish.
Yeah, it takes about 3 months after notification to for the state to do their contracting process.
So in the meantime, are you able to do any work, or are you kind of just stuck until we find out about this?
Pretty much stuck
Okay.
until we find out.
Okay, just curious.
Yep.
Now, does our historic commission review what you're doing?
Yep.
They have.
Yep. So this phase went to the Historic Commission, I think last month. But I think we're going to be going back, right, Ann?
Yeah.
Just for some changes that happened with our design. So we need to go back and get approval for those changes.
So I think you stated it, Kendall, but I'd like to say it again. This is at no expense to the city, except for Kendall's time doing the writing, correct?
That's
And
correct.
the
My time doing
administration.
the writing, as well as Ann's time and my time with some of the project management afterwards, as far as looking to make sure that they've done the work required by the grant and are in compliance with State Historical Fund requirements.
So if we got this as a pass-through, the money appears as revenue to the city, and then we pay it out as.
That's correct.
As you described, as the invoices come in. So we're just really a pass-through, but it shows up on our books.
Correct.
Okay.
And we'll probably make that point again when we vote on this.
I was gonna say, make it as many times as you absolutely need to, please. We're not taking the city's money, so, yes.
And we won't be paying the fish rings either, so the money will go directly to contractors who've done the work, likely through the project manager. So there won't be any checks from the city or the state historic fund to the property owners.
Good point, thanks.
Can you remind me as much as you want to publicly what you guys are planning to do with the building? Like, what's the goal
So,
here?
we've got a lot of ideas. Right now, well, after this phase, when, we look at, what the total expenditure that we've got to that point, then we'll know, what business plan is going to make the most sense for us to recoup the costs that we've invested.
Sure.
I think some kind of, every idea we've talked about revolves around some kind of mixed use, retail, commercial space. Whether we've got the bandwidth for us to start new businesses and hire more people and everything else, or if we're looking to fill the place with, either businesses that already exist or bring in new businesses, it's still up in the air, so.
Cool. Thanks.
Neat.
As a candidate for city council, I have a question on the issue. Is it
Quickly.
possible? I'm just curious what the cost of a project manager is. Estimate ballpark what a project manager is.
We've got 2 calls out to local project managers that have done other grant management before, and we haven't got a response yet, so don't know.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, West Main Underpass Decorative Shot Creek Wall Contract Award. Ryan.
Thanks,
Thanks,
David.
guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
Morning, members of council.
Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning.
Is this better than a shovel on the street, or?
A little bit.
How's the engineering department going?
We're a little thin today, and that's why I'm here. But it's all good. Thanks for having me.
I noticed you didn't have a tie on.
We're not.
We don't vote today.
We don't
Remember,
vote
Doug?
today. Be a little informal. Sorry. Today we're here to consider the award of a contract to Mountain Valley Contracting in the amount of $191,051.30 to finish the construction of the Connectra West Main Underpass Decorative Shotcrete Wall. Contractors already under contract with the City of Montrose have recently completed all the mainline portions of the Connect Rec Trail. This project included the construction of the underpasses at Townsend and West Main. The retaining wall at West Main was initially envisioned to be constructed as a 2-part system consisting of a soil nail wall, which has already been completed, and a secondary cast-in-place concrete wall with a decorative form liner. This approach was modified when soil conditions below the bridge resulted in a relatively variable wall surface and batter on the soil wall. As a result, it became necessary to modify the project design and construct the final wall as a decorative shotcrete face, allowing it to better follow the contours of the soil nail wall and avoid excessive loads. That design was recently updated by Delmont Consultants from here in Montrose. Construction of the decorative shotcrete wall is a very specialized trade with only a handful of companies in the Intermountain West qualified to do that type of work. Due to the specialized nature of this work, the importance of the West Main Underpass wall to structurally support the West Main Bridge, and the importance of the wall's aesthetics, the city elected to eventually publicly request bids to seek out qualified contractors for the construction of that wall. Recently, on February 17th, we received two bids in order to complete that work. One was Mountain Valley Contracting, and the other was Ridgeway Valley, both of which we've had very positive working relationships with recently. Mountain Valley, who is the low bidder is electing to team with Thorcon Shotcrete. Thorcon is one of the largest in the Intermountain West region that does this style of shotcrete decorative face walls, and we have definitely had a very positive working relationship with Mountain Valley. During the construction of the trail, we do envision, though the West Main Bridge is currently open, we will have to shut that portion of the wall in order to safely complete that construction. Important to note is back in December of 18, council awarded a $2.8 million contract to Western Gravel Contractors to construct this portion, to construct the trail project. The original contract included construction of this work element, but as referenced earlier, given the specialized nature, we are electing to go with a specialty contractor with this work element, and if awarded, we would remove this section of work from Western Gravel's contract currently allowed, currently incorporating that. Upon completion of both the trail and the shotcrete face wall, we're still projecting that the construction project comes in approximately $200,000 under the current $2.82 million budget that's currently awarded.
Great.
Do you have an anticipated completion date?
We are anticipating for them to begin in early to mid-April and be completed by the 1st of June.
I just, for the public, we haven't set a date for the grand opening of the trail.
Sure.
This possibly could delay. We were thinking May, I believe.
We're thinking later now to make
Okay.
sure that this work is complete before we announce a grand opening celebration.
But we hope
for
to
the-
have it sometime this summer.
Yeah, we're thinking June.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The benefit of, we anticipate a benefit with a specialty contractor is, though there's a handful of work elements, we do anticipate the physical shotcreting, which is what we would have thought to be the biggest work element, to be a relatively now short piece of this construction schedule. So they're anticipating as little as a week to do the physical shotcreting, and then there's a handful of other work elements that have to be completed as well. But we are anticipating a reduced construction timetable now that it's with a specialty contractor.
So Ryan, the difference between the West Main Bridge and the one on Townsend under
Sure.
Highway 550,
Mm-hmm.
that has to do with the condition of the soil.
A lot to do with the excavation process and how the physical bridge is constructed as well. The West Main Bridge is a different style. It's actually cantilevered out, and it has a floating counterweight abutment. Super complicated. So the section that we completed, the shotcrete wall, actually isn't bearing on the soil. It's more about soil retention rather than soil bearing, and the construction, the excavation was super narrow, so we didn't have an opportunity to slope it back. Compared to Townsend, where it's more, it is bearing on that section of the ground, and we had the opportunity with a much larger excavation to slope back a lot. So the amount of soil that we're trying to retain is much shorter. So we were able to do a traditional wall in that application, where it was just infeasible to do it in this application because it was such a short and tall excavation at West Main.
Oh, yeah, the one under Townsend looks amazing.
Yeah,
It really looks good.
it was much easier to construct with the amount of space available to do that construction, it was very adequate for the application.
I think it's amazing looking at the pictures that are in the packet of the area under West Main and seeing that huge opening.
The
Because
before and after
when I
is
started, yeah,
incredible.
the before picture, almost wondered if I could have crawled through it. It was really teeny in there and questionable. So amazing amount of excavation had to happen.
definitely.
And that finish you're putting on the one on West Main, gonna make it easy to clean paint and stuff off of it?
Sure. So after the Thorcon company comes in and shotcretes and does a decorative finish on that shotcrete, they'll end up actually sculpting the concrete that they are applying. They're shooting on that wall. Western Gravel will still end up applying that anti-graffiti coating to that shotcrete wall afterwards. So Western Gravel will still have some work elements after this is complete, and that's part of the extended amount of delay, or the extended amount of closure window in order to get all that
Do you have,
buttoned up.
do you have any feel at all why the two bids were so
Yeah,
different?
that was my question.
Sure. Mountain Valley, as I alluded to earlier, we did change our approach halfway through as excavation and soil conditions changed a little bit. So we did end up envisioning a shotcrete wall finish with this, and that is what Mountain Valley bid. Ridgeway Valley, they felt like they could go back to the original construction mechanism of doing a formed wall face, and that application would require some additional foundation improvements in order to hold up that additional loading of a traditional formed wall, and that has something to do with the price gap there.
So as an engineer, you feel like this less expensive solution is technically just as sufficient and will last a long time, whatever the life is you expect?
Definitely, and we've used Prince Engineering to do a lot of the physical soil nail engineering design, and he is very confident in that type of application for this situation. Definitely.
Okay, good, thanks.
Anecdotally, now that the weather is improving, I've just heard lots and lots of people out there on the trail, biking, hiking, wheelchairs, kids in strollers. Just, it's really a fantastic asset to our community, and so many people can use it, and they're out there already, so that's fantastic. As a candidate, I will let you ask one question.
Thank you. I realize that the contract to Western Gravel will be reduced by the 200,000. Where will that 200,000 come from? Because it's being expensed to a different company, so I'm just kind of curious what budget, what line item will that come from? Is there a general budget?
Same budget.
The same
Just-
budget for that
yes.
project?
Yep.
Just a reduction in the contract with Western?
Thank you. And letter C, contract award recommendation for owner's representative for police department project. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep, I can at least start it off.
Okay. And then Gary's coming in, or?
Oh, am I out of
That's
order?
Mike.
You're gonna invite them to the table?
I was just gonna give a kind of a brief overview and invite them to the table.
Oh, okay.
So
I heard police department.
Yeah, sorry, we just need the chairs for thanks.
I can start it off. Good.
Blaine's the one that started, so.
I was going to him anyway.
Okay.
Let everybody get seated. and
Yep.
I love the floor, and
We're working on squeaky floors, by the way.
Well,
Isn't that a great idea?
That might change the historic nature of
No
it.
guarantees, but I'm working on it.
Well, WD-40.
Yeah.
That's what I put on.
Yeah, we're just gonna lube up those nails. Yeah, exactly.
But it did.
you know what, let's, if you would speak to that at the end of the meeting, maybe, just
Yeah.
to keep us on track right now. Somebody make a note so I don't forget at the end, please. Chief
Okay,
Hall.
great. City Council, Mr. Mayor, today I come before you for consideration of approval of a contract for dynamic program management for owner's representative services for the city of Montrose in relation to the new police department facility. And so just to let you know, the city followed our RFQ, RFP process in trying to select an owner's representative for the city of Montrose in this case. And after going through that process, Dynamic was selected by staff. We have them here today, and so let me introduce them to you. This is Colleen Caneda right here, and you are the CEO I'm assuming. Of,
the owner, yes.
You're the owner, okay, of Dynamic. And then we have Ray Scott, who will primarily be the selected owner's representative kind of on-site day-to-day, along with Colleen. So I thought maybe how we would do this is let them first kind of introduce themselves, and then maybe as between staff and Dynamic, we could answer any questions that you might have, if that works.
Yep.
All right.
Welcome, we appreciate you being here
Thanks.
today.
We're absolutely thrilled to be here, so thanks for having us. We didn't prepare anything formal, so just give you a little bit of background about who we are real quick. Again, I'm Colleen Caneda. I'm with Dynamic Program Management. I've been working in the construction engineering industry for over 20 years, and primarily all of those 20 years on the western slope of Colorado. We've been working mostly on public projects, I would say concentrating on those for the last 10 years for the most part. And I had the opportunity to work on your new Columbine Middle School project here in town. I'm based out of Eagle, so I'm not too far away. And that's a little bit about me. Feel free to ask questions. My education is in civil engineering. I have several degrees in civil engineering, as well as being a registered professional engineer in the state of Colorado.
Okay, Ray Scott, and I've been in the construction industry since 1972, and project manager, owner's rep for a little over 30 years in that, and working with Colleen for about 12 years, actually. We started working together, so yeah, so that's...
So just to maybe go one step further, the reason that the city felt that we needed to acquire an owner's rep is that this project is going to be huge. And I don't know that we have anyone internally that is qualified to really take on this project and represent the city well to ensure that we're spending money appropriately, to ensure that the project stays on time, on task, all of those different things that will be required really in the next 2.5 years. And so that's why we wanted to go out for owner's rep. This is not something new. This is really a standard practice that municipalities take on when they build, let's say, a new police department, or in this case, Columbine School. And that was something that we learned through our police department building tours, is that those other municipalities all went through the same process, hired an owner's rep to ensure that they had the best product in the end, and that the municipality was well represented. So, with
just first for blame, and this wasn't something that we've just thought about. This was, as the budget was developed for this project, this was expected to occur. The cost of this has been built into the total budget. It's not something we need to supplement. It'll be part of what we anticipated. Thank you. What else can you tell us?
What do you want to know? Trying to think, I think Jim had asked that we talk a little bit about the role of owner's rep, and Chief Hall got into that. If you're not familiar, because everybody knows what the architect does and everyone knows what the contractor does, but what does the owner's rep do? So we're looking at, first and foremost, our number one priority is looking out for the risk of the city of Montrose. So we are constantly evaluating risk from a standpoint of usually 3 things: budget, schedule, quality. And those 3 things are the things that we really will hone in on and focus on. We haven't yet had our first kickoff meeting. We're looking forward to scheduling that. We only interviewed on Wednesday of last week. So in our interview, we talked about the kickoff meeting. We're going to work with a group of what we typically call the executive committee, which would probably be a lot of people in that interview room, as well as possibly 1 or 2 of you, elected officials, if you have the time and capacity to do that. We meet often to review where we are in the project, and we review all of those risk factors. So what is your risk with respect to where we are in the schedule, with the budget, and with the quality at the time? We like to identify core values for the project with that executive committee, and then we publicly post those out through various means so that everybody knows what you guys are trying to accomplish at the beginning of this project and what the core values are. Because we all know when we have to make decisions through committees, it's not always the easiest thing. But we also know in a public process with taxpayer money, being very transparent with those dollars and making sure they're spent appropriately, we have a decision-making matrix of those core values that we can always look back at while we're making those decisions to move forward for the project.
And I think one thing too, speaking of the transparency side of things, Colleen's group would also be responsible for setting up at certain times open houses as the building kind of moves forward and inviting the community in to be able to see what's happening at each stage. And so that's going to be a really important part of the process.
Correct.
Have you guys had any experience with police buildings in the past?
We have a team member, Todd Raper, who was at the interview. He just finished the Steamboat Springs combined law enforcement facility. So that was a joint venture between the Routt County Sheriff and the Steamboat Springs Police Department for that brand new facility. So he is helping on our team as well. I have not personally, mostly have focused on public projects. I just haven't had a chance to do a police facility yet, but really looking forward to it. And the fact that you guys already have Jim McLaren on board, looking at the heavily detailed specifications for law enforcement, that gives us a really good level of comfort. That was a great move by whoever suggested doing that, getting that person engaged early as well.
Do you guys have any responsibility for when the contract is let, making sure that the contractors meet the requirements, the specifications that were put together for this?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we haven't talked yet about delivery method. There's several different delivery methods you can do in a construction project than just a hard bid, which a lot of municipalities are comfortable with a hard bid because that's done a lot, where you get all the way through design and then you put a package on the street and you go with the best value bidder. Columbine Middle School took a different approach, which is called CMGC, Construction Manager General Contractor, where you actually get your contractor on board during pre-construction to help with constructability, value engineering as you go through. Design build is another option of a delivery method, and we just haven't had a chance to go through those yet. And again, evaluating the risk of what's best for the city of Montrose. We're comfortable in all three, but we can talk about the pros and cons.
So you
So
have somebody on site good share of the time, or how does that?
Yes, I would be on site doing walkthroughs with the contractor and the architect once a week. Yes.
On the experience page here, you did mention the Erie Police Department. Is that a project that you managed or were the representative on?
Yes, so Riley O'Brien, who's also part of our team, we have a team of 4 people. Riley worked on the Erie Police Station when he was living on the Front Range, yes.
Okay. So at least the company has some experience.
Yes, yes.
Have you worked with Mr. McLaren before?
Todd, who I mentioned before, Jim was the consultant up on that Steamboat project. So Todd and Jim have already have a relationship.
Fantastic, okay.
A couple of different things. There's been some question, why do we have both Jim McLaren as a technical advisor and now be bringing you on board? Why do we need both?
Do you want that one? Or
Yeah, I can answer that.
Yeah,
So, so Jim McLaren is the consultant for the architectural side. Ultimately, it's to I guess get the best bang for your buck, for lack of a better word. So Jim is going to come in and apply his over 40 years of expertise building police buildings and create an overall design, okay? As Jim Scheid mentions, it's kind of putting fences up around the individual spaces within the police department. And then once that, and correct me if I'm misspeaking, once that overall design is created, then we can start requesting for architects to come in and then design the spaces within those fences. Okay, so we will have an overall police department design, but maybe not individually inside of it what the HVAC, the electrical, the security, all those different things. And so instead of going out for just a bid, with not really any scope. We will have already put the scope in place so that the architects that then will bid on the project have a really good idea of what they need to bid on to really focus in those dollars. That's what a Jim McLaren is for.
So Jim McLaren has like a technical experience in police department building, where Dynamic has that technical experience in owner's rep. So they're different things where, Jim will help in getting the fences up, basically kind of defining somewhat of a scope and helping to direct the architect in the direction we want to go. And the owner's rep is going to help us make that happen through contracts. So I mean, it's complicated. However we want to do the delivery method, that's where they're going to come in and help draft an RFP to help us accomplish what we're looking for in that delivery method. Where Jim McLaren is on the design side, he's an advisor to the owner, but he is going to help our design team in the direction they're going. The owner's rep is helping in every aspect for the most part, but they're representing us and helping to eliminate our risk. So they're kind of different pots, I think, that they're helping with. They're both representing us though, so they're both working directly for the owner. In other projects that are similar, Jim McLaren has worked as a consultant for the architect, which is a different setup. I don't think we want to do that. We like Jim working directly for us as the owner, but that kind of helps explain why in some cases that Jim McLaren as a technical advisor would work for the architect as an advisor to them instead. So that maybe clarify a little bit. Our situation is a little different.
So it looks like these people would be involved in the pre-design as well. It
Yeah.
talks in the packet here of services that you would provide, so you'd work with Jim and kind of keep everything on track, I suspect, as much as I understand it.
It would be involved immediately. So I mean, as soon as we have a contract in place with them, we have a list to tackle right away.
And one of the most important things is getting the right team on board for you guys to do this project. And it's not only your design team and your contractor, there's a lot of other owner consultants, such as a commissioning agent who is extra quality control on mostly your building envelope and your HVAC systems. Because when buildings are occupied, the number one complaint typically is it's too hot in here, it's too cold in here, or the lights aren't working properly. So commissioning agent is usually highly recommended on a project like this. A environmental consultant, although I think you have one on board who's already working on the hazardous materials right next door. Surveyor. There's a lot of things. I don't know what you guys have on board yet, or if you have an on-call contract with those types of services, but we like to assemble that team and get everybody moving together for the goal of the city.
Have we started on a soils analysis yet? Okay.
That would be another of the.
Well, that's important in
Yes.
Montrose. I had a question as I was reading through it, which was you cited your experience with Columbine, but I knew that a different company was the owner's rep at Columbine. I've since learned that you used to be with that company and now you're with this company. And so if anyone else was reading that and was confused, that's the answer. And I heard that you and your team were invaluable in helping them with that project.
That's correct. We used to work for the other company.
Right.
And yeah, a great experience there. It was just always a dream of mine to own my own business and do what I do and work with clients because the other company is larger, and as I was gaining momentum through my career, I was getting farther away from projects, and I realized I was happiest working on the projects.
I do think that weighed in our selection process as far as a company that already has experience working in Montrose and knows the Montrose community, and that weighed heavily in our process.
Right. But just to clarify, this company wasn't hired.
Correct.
She was.
This
And
person.
yes. And I just think if, for anyone else like me who was like, this isn't connecting, because I know this isn't the company that the school district hired. How is this connecting? That's the answer.
Yeah, the NV5 was that company, and
Right.
they were the other group that we interviewed.
Right.
So we interviewed both last week.
So this morning at 5 o'clock, thanks to somebody who thinks we're all early birds, we received this huge packet electronically.
Surprise.
Obviously, I didn't get it all read between then and now, so it's really nice to have the printout, so thank you. Since this was not part of our packet, though, Is this available to the community?
Yep, so,
So we'll add it to the packet, to the public record, so that people can see it from here on out.
Thank you.
and we have a few back there too, if anyone here wants to grab one, so, or we can make more.
And
I assume that we'll see this again in 2 weeks as, whether, I don't know if it's a first reading or action item, but it will come before council the 10th?
17th. And with that will be the contract. So we don't have the contract. There is a sample with the RFQ, but that's something that we'll work on over the next couple weeks to get a contract in that packet for you guys to consider and approve. But that's something we'll work on together between now and then to get a draft in there for you.
And going forward, I'd like to see this kind of information included in our packet, so we don't have to ask for it. I think when we're looking through the information, don't be afraid of giving us too much to read. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Don't expect an answer at 5:15 in the morning.
Well, I didn't ask for it until 10:30 at night.
All right, then we are on to NETSA amended and restated intergovernmental agreement. Again, Chief Blaine Hall, and I think we have some guests perhaps. Paul, are you coming up?
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, you want to go tell them this next step?
Yeah, I talked to him earlier, but yeah, okay.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
I know Paul.
Matt Gage, Executive Director for METSA.
Nice to meet you.
I'll put it over to him.
And a city employee.
I figured.
Mayor, do you want me to start off on
Please.
this one too? Okay. So again, I come before you, City Council, Mr. Mayor, today for the approval of amended and restated intergovernmental agreement concerning the implementation of E911 and emergency telephone service. We have with us today Paul Gottlieb and Matt Gage. Paul is the director of the METSA board, and Matt Gage is actually the 911 service coordinator for Montrose. And so I don't butcher this. I'm going to turn it over to these fine gentlemen for a brief presentation.
Mr. President, do you have anything to say?
No.
Mr. Board President?
Board president.
So basically, this is a little bit of house cleaning for our IGA. There have been some changes in METSA's environment. There's a few items that are cleaning up for clarity for the reader of the IGA, and a couple of items that the board also wants to change for how they do business, how they operate. Have you folks had a chance to review the memo of the changes?
And I found the memo really helpful because as I was going through it and it said there were changes and here's the new one, I was like, but I want to know what changed. And then as I kept reading, I got to the here's a list of substantive changes.
Yeah,
So thank you for including that.
You bet. We discussed showing you every little T that got crossed and, grammar and syntax. And, well, that's not really something you have time for. So that memo seemed far more appropriate.
This is something that we deal with, is it every year or every couple? I mean, this has been before council in the last 4 years, more than once, I believe, so.
It has been.
So the last IGA change was it was adopted at the end of 2015. This change was precipitated by the dissolution of the Paradox Fire Protection District. Since they were listed as one of 11 members in partnership in METSA, and they no longer exist. We needed to make that change, and we took this as an opportunity to do, as I said, some additional house cleaning. in
Are
the
other
IGA.
organizations picking up these places and have dropped?
The entirety of the Paradox Fire Protection District properties as they were. In one moment, the district was dissolved, and in the next moment, the judge ordered that all those same properties would be annexed into the New Glen Ederita Fire Protection District. So those folks are still represented on the METSA board.
They just don't sign off on it.
As an entity, they no longer exist, so
Right.
yes, they can't. Yep.
Right.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
You bet.
Thanks. And now, Mr. Baker. Police Department expansion site.
The planner is here, so it's time for some maps.
Maps are good.
Going through a few things. Oh, there it is. Put that there. Misplaced my clicker. So, I'm here to help set up the police department project. And in terms of planning, this happens a lot where you're at the front end of a project and kind of setting up the overall site. So if I can get this thing fired up, I think might have a dead battery. Sorry about that. Somebody evidently left this remote on. But in your packet, you have the map, and I'll catch the audience up as we get this the batteries into the remote. In your packet, there's a 1.4 acre site that's kind of shown. It's all conceptual. It's about 1.4 acres in size. Includes the current police department building at the center, and some right-of-way and adjacent parcels as well. This is needed to set up the financing of the facility, and Bill or others might have more supplementary comments. Thank you so much. Thank you to still have technical.
You want me to jump in real quick, Gary? I'll jump in.
Yeah.
So while you're doing that, so on here, for the purposes of the COP issuance, we had to draw a boundary line around everything that's going to be included in that issuance. That's required in order for them to go out and market those COPs. They have to show a general area that the project money is going to. So it doesn't define exactly what we're going to do. It just gives us the ability.
Possible, like,
Correct.
boundary, the
Yes.
fence.
Yes, because we couldn't get a COP, borrow money, and then build outside of the property that is outlined in the marketing of that money. So that's why we've taken the frontage in front of the new police services building, and we've extended that out to give us more room there, and because we don't know exactly what we're going to do in that front of that building. And then we've taken the Uncompahgre and the Events Plaza area and incorporated that, which has been the plan all along for the auxiliary building, which is the less expensive per square foot building, where you don't have to build it to that higher standard. And that's what we've talked about before, where it'll be more cost effective rather than building everything under the highest standards possible. Do some of your activities like the Sally Port, where they drive in and park and carry people around, storage of evidence, those types of things can be in that auxiliary building, and that would be east of the current building. And then the general footprint for the higher use, more expensive property would be in between the existing building and the building we're sitting in now. So that's what you see on the map, and then it includes the alleyway directly behind, and then the Kennedy and Co. Lot where we're demoing that building, which just based on discussions right now would be most likely the secured parking area for squads and workers at the police department, that kind of thing, gated access.
This is all stuff the city owns currently. This doesn't represent any plans to buy additional properties.
Correct. This is everything that we own already.
Okay.
We have had discussions just generally over the years. Charlie Young would love us to buy his property. We've talked about that long-term. We've talked about if All Points wants to move to a bigger, larger, more regional facility, which is in their master plan, that could free up the All Points site. But none of that is in the plan at this time. Those are just future areas, so we left them out of this lot.
So we are mainly defining this in order to go forward with COP financing.
Yes, we have to do this. It's the very first step, which ties into tomorrow night's first reading of the borrowing ordinance.
So back to what you said, though. So the city already owns where All Points is. It's just right now they're choosing to stay there.
Yeah, we haven't approached them actually to ask them about moving, so we didn't include that in here. Just expecting that even if they were wanting to implement their master plan, it's gonna take them several years to make that happen, and wouldn't fit the timeline of the construction of the new PD anyway.
And we've had some discussion over the years about closing that block on South and Compadre. Is that still something we may look at in the future, you think?
So, yes, so that's in here where it's that red square. Is that the area you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be the auxiliary building. So that whole red square and the yellow going near the Straw Hat Farms building, that would all be an auxiliary building. And then, as of right now, it's all preliminary, of course, but the squads would come in on Uncompahgre, go into a roll-up door into that facility. So they have street access to get into their building, which makes it really convenient and less expensive than if we had to go out and build a whole new street or entryway.
So what do the red squares represent? Just,
The red squares, or rectangles, more like.
okay, sorry.
I get kind of bothered by the term red square.
Oh my God.
Those are, there's really one council action that we're setting this up for, and that is a vacation ordinance of public right-of-way. So Uncompahgre Avenue, which is the easternmost more of a square on this map in front of you. The Block 86 portion of Alley, so alleys don't have a unique name, so it is Block 86 of the town plat. And also a portion of South First Street in front of what's currently, or what used to be the Wells Fargo Drive-In, just going out to the center line of the right-of-way. So that's 50 feet out to the center line of right-of-way.
Can you remind us what a right-of-way vacation means? Like, what does that actually mean? Like, how?
That means that, I guess for this purpose, it's a little different. Normally, a right-of-way vacation involves the city and a private owner, so that the city may vacate the right-of-way, meaning that that right-of-way is no longer used as a right-of-way, and special emphasis on that term. No longer used as a roadway, as a throughway for pedestrians, bicycles, or whatever. It's that use is being stopped, and the land is actually reverting to the adjacent owner. So normally, always you have the owner can claim up to the center line of a right-of-way if a vacation happens.
So if this was a private party, the private party would own that land. The city is saying, we don't need it as a place for a road.
Yes.
You now have that land.
When
So-
a vacation happens and an entity, and it's specified in the ordinance as such, then that's, yes.
Okay. So in this case, because it's the city and the city, but what we're saying is this piece of property is no longer needed as a place for a road or an alley or street. The city can use it for something else? Is
Yes.
that a way to look at it?
And those terms are generally in the vacation ordinance itself, that it's no longer needed for functioning of the roadway system.
So can you explain to me how I don't quite see how on South First that's no longer needed as a road? Like how?
Thanks. Yeah.
Are we
So right
looking
now-
at changing that traffic on that or something?
So potentially, we don't know exactly where the police department's gonna come out. And so, and one important thing to keep in mind, it's not technically the city and the city, because with certificates of participation, we're not the owner of the police department for that amount of time. So we're a leased tenant for the length of that loan. So you have to do that because somebody else is occupying that space and we're buying it back from them, which is how the COP process works. So that's kind of the technical side of it. That's why you have to do it for the COPs. And then we don't know what the future holds on that particular thoroughfare, because we don't know exactly, we don't have architectural plans or anything. If we find out that the only way to make it really efficient use of the space and a good operating building, and it needs to come 20 feet out from the current curb line, then it wouldn't go all the way to center line, it would just go 20 feet out. But we have quite a bit of time to talk about that. This is just to preserve that area for the borrowing issuance. It's making no decisions on closing the street yet or any of that kind of thing. And then we actually have a dartboard meeting tomorrow where Chris Andreessen's going to be visiting and doing a walkthrough on Centennial Plaza. And I'm at leadership training tomorrow with Colorado Health Foundation, but I've asked him to bring up with the DART group ideas, big picture thinking, how could that Centennial Plaza area tie in with an overall plaza area with the new police department building? Rather than just focus on the little area we have right now for Centennial Plaza, how could we make a nicer pedestrian area for downtown with tables and chairs and some greenery and that type of thing that ties in with the new construction of the police department? So after 3 years, we can all be really proud of this downtown space. So this just gives us that opportunity to have that conversation. So
It's
two
actually almost a
reasons for it.
continuation. I mean, the idea of closing South First has been in conjunction with, I mean, it's been discussed
It's
for a
been
long
talked
time,
about for
and you're
years.
just making sure that we have all the property we need.
Right.
So is there any downside or impact of making these yellow rectangles bigger? I mean, why wouldn't you want to have the option of having it go all the way down to the east end? I don't quite understand just a little bulge there.
To the east end, to that building?
Well, east, yeah. So why not go all the way down the street to here, and then you have a lot of options for different parts of your building design that.
As far as the street vacation?
Yes, yes.
We were trying to vacate the minimal amount of property as possible that's required for the borrowing. So anywhere we're not going to construct the police building doesn't need to be included in that borrowing language. So we don't need to give ownership, we want to give ownership to the COP the lenders, the least amount of city-owned property as possible.
I see,
And here's
okay.
It doesn't mean
another-
we can't use it for stuff, we just can't use their money in that area.
And here's another reason why, Roy, because let's say, for example, we want to expand Centennial Plaza, and GOCO or DOLA it has available grant money. They will only let us improve stuff we own. So if we have included that in the CLP, then we no longer own it. And so that's a really important distinction to carve out the right amount, to carve out just enough and not too much more.
I didn't understand that. That's great. Good explanation. Thanks.
I have a police question. I know we are not designing the building yet, but closing a street next to a police station begs the question, the access in and out and the police ability to get out the door and to an emergency. Is closing a street next to the police station gonna hinder that?
So we have, just initially talked with Jim McLaren, who recommends a couple of different access points for vehicles for a police department. And we do feel this design actually works quite well with those points. Also pedestrian access to a police department. And I keep on bringing up this 2 entrance point. You have your public entrance where your victims, community members come in, maybe right off of a community room to make it more of a community fixture. And then you have your second entrance, which is possibly in the auxiliary side, where you have sex offender registration, where you have evidence return and release. We had an incident just this week at the police department where we had to close down our front entrance because of an individual and some lice issues. And so
So you want a front door and a back door?
we need a front door and a back door where we can separate those issues so that we're not commingling citizens and victims with some of the other, issues that we have to deal with. So both vehicle and pedestrian, this would be we believe a good footprint. And then as far as parking, that we would still design in like a bulb out, kind of angled in parking on both the west and the east side of the police department so that there would be adequate parking. And that's adequate parking for people that are coming to the police department. That we're not discussing the secure parking for employees.
And the uses of downtown after like the movie theater, for example, is on this corner, very important, and so there would be parking still for that kind of thing. And that rear access Blaine was talking about, just in the big picture vision now, you know, picking up evidence that had been taken in or things like that would possibly be done on this back side from South Second entry, and then that whole front side. And then you didn't mention the safety aspect, but also closing off the access on the front of the PD to vehicles makes it safer, because nobody can drive in and barrel into the building and that kind of thing. So having pedestrian only in the front is very common nowadays.
Yeah, we saw that in all those buildings we visited.
I know the Justice Center had to, not too far long ago, had to put in secured parking for everyone who works out at the Justice Center. So, you know, it's got the high fence, the security gates, all of that. So is that what this is? When you're talking secured parking, you're talking for more than just police cars?
Yes.
You're talking for everybody who works for the PD?
Yep.
Yep. And depending on how much space we have back there, it could be City Hall employees as well. If you haven't, we haven't talked through all those details, but with this project, we're taking away some employee parking for our buildings as well. And depending how we do Centennial Plaza and that parking area, all those things are up in the air and need to be discussed with DART and the design committee and council. That'll be over the next year, talking about all those details of design.
Any other questions, comments?
Just a wrap-up thing, if
Please.
I may. So, again, if everything goes according to plan, you will, if the council is okay with this, we'll have a vacation ordinance in front of you on the red outlined rectangles. And once that is approved, the staff will be able to create an amended plat, including those areas for the yellow outlined areas. So we'll plan to record that shortly after the council approves the vacation.
And that's March 17th, I think, right?
We're shooting for that, yeah. Yep. I've been in contact with the surveyor about getting legal descriptions.
Great, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And 4152 North Townsend Edition Annex, so don't go anywhere.
Thanks to Greg for filling in on our technical
Use the
glitch.
remote.
So if you could advance, please. So this next item is an annexation for a property up on North Townsend Avenue. So this is a developed parcel. Try to catch up my own document here. 4152 North Townsend Avenue, and we've creatively called the annexation by the same name. The project site's a little bit over 10 acres in size. As you can see, it is located just north of Humphrey RV and UPS on North Townsend. We have an annexation petition that's been received. If you could advance, please. This all was triggered by a subdivision proposal, basically to split off a house from the existing storage and Colorado Fireside business. So subdivisions under our IGA with Montrose County get referred to the city for essentially a first right of refusal on annexation. So in keeping with that agreement, the city worked with the property owner to get an annexation set up. Advance, please. In looking at the city's annexation policies, this looks very consistent with that. It's owner initiated. The city also has a priority on obtaining commercial properties for inclusion in the city limits. And if the council is okay with this proposal, then we'll, the next step would be a resolution to set a hearing date for the annexation hearing. So the resolution could be on March 17th, and then that would set the actual action, the annexation hearing and first reading of the annexation ordinance, as well as the zoning for, I believe that's that second meeting in April. And then the annexation could be finalized at the first meeting in May. And also the slide notes here that an annexation agreement doesn't look like it's needed. There's no additional right-of-way or utility corridors that we need to obtain, so we're not pursuing an annexation agreement separately.
What's the zoning gonna be on that, Gary?
Well, the proposed zoning would be B3, General Commercial District, in keeping with other zoning in that corridor.
Even
But
on the
that's,
residential piece of it?
excuse me? Yeah, yes, that would allow it as use by right. But we need to qualify all this because that is only proposed at this time. It still needs to go to the Planning Commission for their consideration.
And that when we consider annexation, we shouldn't be considering the zoning, right? I mean.
That's right. Yeah,
like
just
they're
whether.
They're separate, and we need to consider one under its merits.
That's correct. Yep.
So do we have water and sewer service nearby?
The city does not. Sewer is in the vicinity, and the city would be the designated sewer provider. There's no additional sewer being proposed or needed for this at this time, but that could happen in the future. The adjacent parcel had sewer extended to it, for example. Water is provided by Minokan Water District, so that would continue the way it is.
Okay. Is that being served on septic system at the present time, do you know?
I believe so, yes. That's what I've been told.
So to be eligible for city annexation, it has to be contiguous with city, within the city. So
Yes.
you have stated that some of it is contiguous. Where? Which part of this is contiguous?
So Greg, if we go back to the more detailed map. I guess this is what we have. Sorry about the small scale of the map, but hopefully what's in your packet is more easily readable. There is contiguity to the east and southeast of this parcel.
And we know that because that area shows up as gray in the map,
That's right, yeah.
and so that's what touches. So that's a big chunk. It's more than just 1/6 of the.
It is well over 1/6. Yeah, it's probably in the vicinity of 30%.
Is the highway part of the city?
Not right in front here.
Not in front, okay.
Any other questions, or we okay to see a resolution to set a hearing date at the next council, or March 17th council? Great, thank you.
Thank you. Wow, that was quick. I guess we'll go to council and then staff, and under staff, Jim, if you'll remember to talk about the floor.
Sure.
Might be the most exciting thing today.
Okay, do I get to start?
Please.
First Monday of the month. For 8 years, we've been doing the radio show on the first Monday of the month. And we were notified this last week that Cherry Creek Media has decided to no longer do those radio shows where people come in and talk about what's going on in the city. So I wanted to thank all of you, staff, and everyone for having done that for 8 years. Bill and I made a real effort, I think, to have it be open. It was very transparent. Always myself, almost always Bill, and then a staff member. And so we could talk about what was going on. And I think almost all of you as department heads have been on that show, and you've talked about different things. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to see it go away. KUBC Radio, Jim Kirshner actually asked for it 8 years ago, okay? And so it was good to have it. And I'm assuming same thing with,
I got the same email.
just started with a new police department show, well, in the last several months, not very long. And yeah, so they're not doing that at all. So I'm sorry that we don't have that transparency where we can go out and talk about things, but also people could call in and ask questions. And we've answered a lot of questions. I don't think we've ever had a question be asked that wasn't answered. So, thank you.
Now it's gonna be 70s hit radio.
Well, I listened
I
this
would've
morning.
preferred
and
80s radio.
This morning it was just,
I was kind of looking for 60s.
I was thinking, not 40s. Oh, jeez.
Did I see an evaluation?
Yeah, your evaluation's coming up soon.
I forgot about
I
that.
actually like 70s.
Well,
and if anybody, anybody wants to talk sports, tomorrow night, 3rd round for Montrose High School girls basketball, hosting here at 6 o'clock. And then Wednesday night, the boys also are in 3rd round and they get to host. So it'll be here Wednesday night. And last time I checked, time hadn't determined on that one. So, great week for Montrose High School basketball. Thank you.
I don't have anything.
I just wanted to say thanks to Judy Ann for 8 years of service to the community, being on the radio every week, and all the dedication that represents. You've done amazing things for us.
Since I'm not a morning person, that's been good. I've enjoyed it. Thank you, Roy.
Extra
Yeah,
work.
You're welcome. I don't have anything else.
I don't have anything. So we'll start with Greg, or no, Shaney?
I don't have anything.
Nothing from IT.
Squeaky floors in an old historic building.
Nice.
So, as I'm sure you all watch Bob Vila at this old house, he's fixed things like this before, so.
Bob's coming.
Yeah. He's coming.
Oh, we're gonna be on TV.
So we've ordered a screw that's made for this. We have to do kind of some small investigation first to figure out if it'll work and what's under the floor, if there's any sleepers or anything underneath the wood floor. So it takes a little bit of investigation. We may try it in a corner first. By the way it works is you drill a small hole. You have a screw that you run in there, and it's actually made to break off below the surface of the wood. So then it basically ties the wood floor to the subfloor, and hopefully that's where the squeak is coming from. So there's a lot of different scenarios that can cause it, but if that works, then it's a small hole that you putty over, and it basically disappears. So we will try it maybe in some corner areas here first where it's not as visible, see if it does take care of a squeak, and then we can move from there and try it throughout the main aisleway. Under the carpeted area is a little bit harder. We'll have to get a little more creative to figure that out, but we're working on it. We've ordered some screws, so we'll see. Hopefully the squeaks go away soon.
This is kind of our last shot before removing the historic
How
floor.
about just some hot glue through all the cracks when we glue it?
Yeah. We've tried to think of a lot of different ways, even trying to come up from the bottom, but the ceiling space is difficult to work around on the first floor. So we've thought of a lot of other things, but the screw is probably the last straw. So we'll
So
see.
if we can't have Debbie Reynolds and John Wayne come back and dance, after it gets repaired, may I dance on it?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes.
To whatever song you'd like.
I'll sing at the same time. I did that last week.
Whatever you want.
So tonight we have our formal awards presentation for the police department. We have 2 years worth of awards that we're recognizing employees with. And so you all, of course, are welcome to attend that if you'd like. It starts at 6:30 p.m.
When is
at
that?
the Pavilion tonight, at the Pavilion. 6:30 p.m.
Okay.
It's not on yours probably because it's
I had
always-
it as Wednesday. But it's Monday.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sorry
Is it on
about
your
that.
calendar otherwise?
Yeah.
It was just on the wrong day.
That's all I have.
Okay. We're helping to facilitate a neighborhood meeting with GMCO, which is a company that stores road maintenance materials, and they're operating at a site at North 9th and North Selig. And so that'll be on Thursday at 6 p.m. at Anciano Towers, and there's a representative from GMCO coming. The city will do a quick presentation about zoning and the zoning on that site and development regulations in general, and then give the meeting over to the GMCO representatives and the neighborhood to have a conversation about questions that neighbors have about what's happening there. center on that site that's being leased by the railroad property. So that'll be at 6 p.m. on Thursday. Everyone is welcome to come. I'm sorry that it conflicts with other activities going on in town, but we wanted to provide this meeting in a timely manner.
Very good. Gary, anything?
Nothing additional, thank you.
Lisa?
We have alcohol server training on Thursday night from 5. It starts at 5 o'clock, and plenty of space in the class for anyone who wants to attend.
We need somebody to show up to be the drinker. Or?
No, we don't. I think we already have about 25 signs.
Chelsea, anything?
Just wanted to announce that we have officially launched a golf promotion package through the Visit Montrose, and so we're working with all 3 courses in the community to offer an overnight stay package for couples and singles to come golf all 3 courses, stay at the Bridges or Cobble Creek, and also get a wine and dine certificate. And they're at really great discounted rates. It's out on Visit Montrose. We can share more information, but we've already started those bookings, and so we think and hope that it'll be a success.
Kendall, anything? That's everybody but Bill Bell.
All right, I have a few things. Shani didn't mention it, but she did a great job putting together Citizen Budget Advisory Citizen Committee meeting last week, and we have our next one next week. And we had 2 people show up to that. And we had a pretty good discussion, about an hour and a half. Went through all of the 2020 fund budgets, and then we'll continue that conversation at the next meeting, going by department. We were high level. At 5:30?
5:30.
On which day?
March
5:30, March 10th.
Great, thank you.
And that, it's in the annex room up above the centennial room.
Okay, thank you.
And let's see. Oh, we've been meeting with people out in the community, and some of the council candidates have come in to ask us questions about city operations, those types of things. I think prepping for their candidate forums and stuff, learn more about the city. And a couple of the candidates asked why we don't do the mingle with the manager or mingle with the city council anymore. And so I just wanted to bring that up. We did it for a while. It was well attended. We did it at Proximity Space. A lot of people came in. And then over time it started to dwindle, and it was really just council and department heads having coffee together, which we don't have to do at a mingle event. And so that's why we stopped doing that for a while, but I'm wondering if people would be interested in rekindling that. And it would be more than just mingle with the manager, but just mingle with the city, and we could have representatives. DMEA does a coffee thing similar to that. A lot of the other larger entities in the community do.
I'd like to do what I see some other municipalities do, which is to have that time before council meetings. So it's the time when department heads and council kind of already have it on their calendar, so we're not asking department heads to stay late on a different night of the week and use their time wisely, but to be available, let's say at 5:30 on the first Tuesday of every month. I mean, the first Tuesday when we have council meeting, so that there's I just think that's one way to do it, so that people who are interested, it's after work, it's not during the work day. If they're interested, then they can stay for the council meeting. I just think that's one way to do it.
We'll have to make sure we schedule our executive sessions properly to get around that.
We would, yeah.
They could be on the 3rd Tuesday.
Yeah, or do it the other way around. It's an idea to try that once a month before council, and have an expectation that department heads and councilors are here and available to talk and answer questions and stuff, since that's not really something we can do during meetings, because if things aren't on the agenda, we can't talk about them in a back and forth way. But if we were here before meetings, we could certainly have back and forth discussions and talk to people.
Yeah, I like that.
Does that create any problem if we needed to have an exec session? Would we just cancel sometimes exec sessions are a little more timely.
Yeah, I think if we did something where we'd advertise the standing public interaction, then we would just limit ourselves to one standing slot at 4:30 on that opposite Tuesday. knowing that if we had a huge issue pop up, we can schedule an executive session anytime.
Okay.
But we'd have our standing slot from 4:30 to 5:45 on whatever first or third, and then have that standing public meet and greet the opposite one. I think that would work.
Yeah.
We don't have that many closed sessions.
We don't have that many executive sessions, and those would be much easier to reschedule than setting up an expectation that we're available to meet with the public and then changing it. I don't think we should do that.
Okay, I'm seeing heads nod, so we'll get something put together for that. And then, Jim didn't mention it, but it's exciting, the first swing event, I think, is next Monday at 10 a.m.
Yep, Monday.
GM's gonna beat down the building with a
That's
hammer.
right, yeah. Any of you that would like, I'll have a assortment of hammers available, and you can take your swing.
Wait a minute, you told me I had to be able to pick up a 35-pound sledge.
Just you, I want to see you do it.
Over your head.
You gotta get it over your head.
Now, we can pick it up, we maybe couldn't swing it.
So, yeah.
Asbestos gone?
They're taking it out right now. That's what the contractor's doing right now across our.
So what we hit with hammer won't.
Yeah, it'll be clean and clear, and
They're
and all
putting it
signed
in
off.
Doug's backseat right now.
Oh, okay, good.
So yeah, Monday at 10. Just kind of a symbolic first swing. You know, it's the first step in a very long project. So. Be
Technically the groundbreaking ceremony,
right.
right?
No, there'll be
First swing on down.
groundbreaking of the golden shovel idea when the construction contractor is actually in place breaking ground. So it's a little different, but still, this is the first swing. So.
And so I wanted to make sure that's on everybody's radar. And then today and tomorrow, Colorado Health Foundation, partnering with the Center for Creative Leadership, they're doing a leadership on the ground training, 2 all-day trainings. Ann and I and our new community engagement specialist, Bethany, are part of that training. We just snuck out to do the work session, then we'll head back over there. That's being held at the Ute Museum. There's about 20 to 24, I can't remember which one, but I think 24 participants. There's staff members from a variety of nonprofits, the school district, the city, Tyrad Foundation. There's just a lot of different groups involved, and it's all about equity and inclusion and bringing diversity to your community, and how do all of those entities work together to make the entire community and region more accessible to everyone.
That's cool.
And so we're excited to be part of that. And then one really exciting thing we want to mention is that we were able to work with Colorado Mesa University and the Montrose Sheriff's Department and the Montrose PD, and we will be creating a summer law enforcement academy. It's final, so we can release that now
Wow,
publicly.
fantastic.
It'll be housed at the CMU Montrose campus and in our new building, in probably the training area of our new building once that's constructed. But right now it'll primarily be at the CMU campus here in Montrose.
Is that going to allow us to hire faster, more? Like that's
Absolutely.
going to affect our hiring?
It will absolutely affect our hiring. So we're going to try to stand it up in 2021. Will be the first academy session. There's a lot of work to be done in coordination with the academy director. The state needs all of the lesson plans, the sites, where we're going to teach, all of those things by June of this year. And so we're really working quickly, the city is, and with CMU to try to identify who that person's going to be so that we can get something started 2021. And then it's awesome because we'll be able to teach these candidates, within the state curriculum, law enforcement, but also they're right here in Montrose, so it's a direct hiring source for us. And it will be the only summer police academy that isn't already like a Denver PD or Arvada that's open to anyone. So we believe it'll probably be a destination academy across the state for people who want to move to Colorado for law enforcement. So it's going to be really cool.
Sheriff's Department and our team, as well as legal and maybe the DA's office, will all provide instructors for that program, so it'll all be locally taught.
We're currently sending our recruits who need to go through the academy up to Grand Junction.
Correct. So it'll just be an extension of CMU's academy in Grand Junction. They teach a January academy and they teach an August academy. We would fill in for a summer academy.
Okay.
It would not be in competition with any other academies in the region because no one else in the region has a summer academy. So we think it would actually be a complement really to the region. So it's not just us, it's Delta, Ouray, Telluride, Grand Junction.
Because right now you
Mesa
have to
County.
time, if you've got a new recruit who hasn't gone through the academy, their hiring is tied to when they can next go through that.
Exactly. So right now, today, if we hire a non-certified person, we have to wait until essentially the first week of August of this year just to put them in a police academy. And then they have a 4-month process in a police academy, another 4-month process for us. They wouldn't actually be good to us until probably May of 2021 right now. So if we could shore that up and we had access to a summer academy, that's gonna reduce our hiring time by 4 months.
That's great.
It is great. Yep. It's awesome. It's exciting.
Well, and I know talking to some of our other local regional cities and towns, the possibility of them sending their people to Montrose is a lot better. That's more stable for families and all of that they can do that here in Montrose instead of having to travel somewhere else in the state.
There's been some other chiefs that have really expressed positive interest in this too, in the region. So I think it's gonna support the region well, and it's just really exciting. It's just another thing that, you know, the community will be doing that really puts Montrose on the map, so.
How many
The
students?
only issue we brought up is housing.
How
housing.
many students attend an academy? Like, is this 8 or 30? Somewhere in
So,
between.
The minimum number would probably need to be probably 9, but the maximum could be up to potentially 30 students at a time.
So housing, if they come here just to do this, a single person who's hoping to, that's a crunch for them.
Have you given any thought to reaching out to any of the short-term rental folks?
We didn't talk about the short-term rentals.
No, we didn't.
It's a good idea. As part of the agreement, it kind of goes to the number. So CMU has said to make it worthwhile to run the summer academy, we need 6 who are not. So we should say, in exchange for teaching, the county sheriff's department and the city's PD gets slots. So
Free tuition.
which are normally around $10,000 per slot. So we get tuition scholarship for 2 for us and 1 for
2
them.
for us and 1 for them.
3 sponsored, and so they would need 6 paying to make it work. So 9, that's where we get the 9 people would need to. We don't think we're gonna have a hard time getting 9 people from all the area agencies, including ours.
That's really exciting.
So thanks to the sheriff and to Blaine for willingness to work together on it, because it would not have worked. CMU said absolutely not unless the sheriff's department is on board with the city's PD. And so a lot of meetings, and then Stephen and Dan Hotzenpeller have been a big part of that as well. So it's just been a good team effort.
Wow, cool.
Working together.
Very good. Anything else? We're adjourned. Staff, thanks for being here. Public, appreciate everybody coming and the interest, and great to see some candidates here to learn about what we do. Have a good day, everybody.